It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me.
Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump.
So welcome to another Reality Check with Craig Price. I am your host, Craig Price, and we've got a great, very scholarly episode for you this week. On the podcast, Liam Dunfey joins me to talk about college admissions. Now, I'll be upfront with you right away. My college experience was very limited. It was a state school. I was a commuter student, so I didn't live on campus. So for me, it was just another expensive high school. That's basically what it ended up being. I would drive to school, go to take my classes, and I would drive home. So in my mind, I don't feel I had the full college experience. I went for 1 year. I realized, I'm not that great a student. I was getting pretty good grades. I was getting actually better grades than I was in high school. But I decided, this was not for me. I'm not a student, at least not a traditional student. So off I went into the real world to get jobs and work. That's what I did. So I kind of missed out on this whole application process, the writing essays and getting references and all these things for college. So if you have kids in your family, whether they're your own kids, maybe some nieces or nephews, some grandkids, this is the podcast to listen to really get some information, to get them prepared to make sure that they go to college, to the right school that will help them the most. So without any further ado, let me give you Liam Dunfey.
I didn't take the T to get here because it was raining. And I go, well, I don't know how close the station is. I don't know where anything is. So the last thing I wanted to do was get off the T and then walk to the hotel in rain. Even though it really wasn't raining that badly, I'm that much of a wimp. So I didn't even know where the station is or anything. So has the T gotten any better?
It's gotten a lot better. I've rode the T every time I come back to Boston. I grew up on the T. I took the 34E bus from Forest Hills to Zavarian Brothers High School. I took the Orange Line all over the city as a teenager. That was the way I got around the city. I was one of three. And my other two siblings never got a license because they just relied on the T.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing, like New York City, Boston, there's people who generations have never gotten licenses because they only have gotten identification cards.
That's right.
Yeah. And so for those I am here with Liam Dunfey. I think I said that correctly.
Correctly, yes.
That is a pure Irish name. You're not even redheaded, so you almost got the stereotype. Just need the accent.
Black Irish, light eyes, dark hair.
Okay, and your specialty is college admissions. You're a college admissions specialist, which is something that I never heard of until recently.
Yes,
because I certainly there was not a specialist in my day.
The field has proliferated over the last 20 years.
Ooh, see, you did go to college. Use the word proliferated. I can't even say it.
There has been a surge, Craig, in the number of college admission consultants in the last 10 to 20 years. And the business really started in the mid-'70s, but it's just in the last 10 to 20 years where you're seeing a lot more people like me help students throughout the process. And I think it correlates to the fact that nationally, the ratio of guidance counselors to students is 1 to 500.
Yeah, that makes sense because I was going to say, is it because there's a higher competition to get into schools, so they need specialists like yourself to make sure that when they apply, they're going to get in?
Yes, there is. However, the majority of college admission consultants out there, Craig, are people like me that are not necessarily working with the top 5% of students to get them into the top 1% of colleges, like the Ivy League schools or the UCs. The types of counselors out there like me that are helping students are working with more middle of the road
C students and B students.
I think so. There's I've worked with some great students, but a lot of times if a family is looking to get into a particular school, I might not be the right counselor to help them because I'm not the director of admission at the thousands of colleges and universities out there. I cannot guarantee admission, nor can any other admission consultant out there. that is a fallacy.
Well, is it because the competition to get in has gotten worse or more fierce? Because I keep thinking in my mind, the type of parent that would hire you, which is, is going to be the ones that are driven, that want their kids to do well, that really want to push their kids to make sure they get into a good school. I don't see, like my parents, God bless them, are nice and want me to do well, but, education was not a top priority for them with me. I don't even think we discussed college or going to university. My brother went to school. I have a feeling that he took up most of the money. So when it came to my turn, applying to college was not even discussed. Getting scholarships was not even thought of. So I'm thinking these are driven parents that are pushing their kids to try to get into Yale and to Harvard and to all the schools that are nestled around us here in Boston. I'm sure there's other great places in California as well, but and across the country. But
I think you've mentioned a couple things about the students and the parents driving the process to get them into these top echelon schools. And yeah, there are parents out there that are really pushing their sons or daughters to excel. And many of the students out there with straight A's and great SAT scores, they're applying to some of the Ivy League schools and to some of the other brand name recognized schools. But the reality, Craig, 6% of people get into Harvard.
Sure, there's just not enough.
There's just not enough. And you went to which high school in New Hampshire?
I went to Concord, New Hampshire.
Concord, New Hampshire.
Concord High School. I went there, my brother went there, my father went there, my grandfather graduated from there. It was a very special day. I went to the same school that everyone. It's just a public school.
Sure.
I was fortunate that it's I will say I don't know what the condition it is now, but Concord High School and Concord School District at that time was a very good school district. Krista McAuliffe, the astronaut, was from my high school. So, we were smart kids from high school, but I'm not sure a lot of my friends and a lot of my peers actually went on to college, and I'm not sure it was as driven as important to a lot of people.
I think you're right. Not everyone is driven to go to college, at least initially. And college is not for everyone. That's why I think the latest statistics are less than a third of working professionals have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, 2 semesters of University of New Hampshire, I realized I am not a student, or at least I'm not a structured student. So yeah, I certainly agree with that. So let's go through the process because it's October right now.
We're in the thick of it right now, Craig.
If you're a senior or a junior, when you should be starting to think about it?
I begin working with students when they're halfway through their junior year.
Okay.
That's not to say I wouldn't work with a senior that would call me up right now. As a matter of fact, I'm working with 2 international students, 3 as a matter of fact, that have called me in the last 2 weeks. I get these calls every fall, Craig. And that's okay. They're just starting a little bit later in the process.
It's the ones in April that are concerning.
and I've had those students before too. And sadly, I've had those parents that will sometimes call and say that their son or daughter was not admitted to the 3 or 4 schools that they applied to, and they need to go back to the drawing board. The good thing, though, Craig, is there are hundreds of schools out there that work on rolling admissions.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many a program, gap years are becoming very popular here in New England, where you would go to Concord High, graduate, take a year off, go travel, go learn another language.
Go to the tech school.
Go to the tech school, go to a community college.
Junior college, yeah.
There are a lot of alternatives. A lot of students aren't necessarily ready for college.
Yeah, there's definitely a maturity factor as well as, because you always think back, like we're both in our 30s now. Obviously, you've done very well. I've kind of done okay. But you always go back and go, man, if I had only known, what I know now, I would have definitely applied more. I would have gone to college and got my degree or my doctorate or whatever, more than what you have. Because you start to realize that education is so important.
It is. It is very important. And I've heard a lot of recent news in the media from some of these entrepreneurs that higher education is not as important as it used to be. I disagree, and here's why, Craig. And this could be because I come from a liberal arts background. For me, going to college was more about finding my fit in the world, learning a little bit about a lot. I majored in American history, And people used to ask me in college, what are you going to do? Are you going to go work for a museum? You're going to be a tour guide, a teacher? I said, no. I think that the skills I'm learning now to speak better, to write better, to work with groups, to understand a little bit about a lot is going to help me in the long term more, because right now, people professionally, they're switching their career 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, I don't think they really focus on the actual degree. So, because I know a lot of people have a psychology degree. I know a lot of people have different degrees, and I think what it shows, in my opinion, what I think business owners who hire college, people with degrees, it shows a commitment that you are willing to, you committed to get a degree, you finished, you were able to start what you finished. It doesn't matter what it is, because you're going to learn a broad range of information anyways.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Craig. When you can start something and then finish it, it speaks volumes about your character and your perseverance. Right now, I think I read the other day that 57% of students that enroll at a 4-year university graduate within 6 years. Not the greatest percent. That means 4 in 10 students are not graduating within 6 years. Now, most would say, why can't they graduate in 4 years? Well, there are many reasons why students don't graduate in 4 years. They could be in an engineering track. They could take a semester off.
I think it's the access to alcohol.
It could
I think it's hitting that 21 slows it right down. They got 18, 19, 20. The first 3 years, they're gangbusters, and then, hey, oh, no. And it slows them right down.
I think you're right. There are some reasons socially that students...
But the reality hits a lot of times. You got to, money, it's not cheap to go to school for 4 years. Sometimes they got to space it out and take some classes. My wife is currently doing online classes. But you said this is the perfect time to start if you're a junior in high school. So
Yes.
if there's parents out there with juniors in high school, it's a little early, but October right now is perfect. Usually probably January.
January is ideal, right after the holidays.
Okay. And why is that?
And I'll tell you why here, Craig. It's important because at that point, as a consultant, I can take a look at their first 2.5 years of high school.
And what do you glean from that? See, I can use big
I'm
words.
looking at trends. Primarily, what have they done in the 5 core subject areas? Math, English, social science, a science, and a language. With the keys being math and English. Are they trending up or are they plateauing? What types of courses would I recommend them taking heading into the second half of their junior year and, more importantly, into the first half of their senior year? A lot of times you hear about this senior slide, or you hear about students taking these fluff courses. The reality,
guilty as charged.
And it's very common. And with a little guidance, they can take the right courses, and that way they're going to get set up for the success that they're going to be looking for when they're applying to some top schools.
Yeah, because I crammed everything in the first 3 years. I mean, I didn't have a free moment the first 3 years. And my senior year, I think I had 3 classes a day, and I had a lot of free time, and I don't think I went to all 3 of those classes. But that's neither here nor there. You can still survive. You can survive high school. That's all I can tell people is that I am not a role model. I am Charles Barkley. I am not a role model. But so you've got to get them on the class. So you're looking for an uptick. You're looking to see that they're going to take when they go to college and things get more difficult. That they're going to, at least it looks like their trend is they're going to be able to take on that workload.
Definitely. Or if there are problems, junior year. That's the year where, yes, colleges will take the most amount of emphasis. They're going to want to see what is happening in junior year, because I think there's been an opportunity through the first 2 years of high school to get some maturity and to start excelling in some of those 5 core subject areas. Now, not everyone is going to get straight A's. Well, there are some. But there's usually going to be an area of weakness and there's going to be areas of strength. And at that point, I want to make sure that we're focusing on those areas of strength. For example, if someone is really good in a language, I'm going to recommend that they maybe take another language or take an AP class in that particular language. Why settle for the status quo when, if you have an opportunity at your high school to take an AP course, why not try to do it? Why not push yourself to the limit and make sure that you're illustrating to a college or colleges that you mean business. You want to do well.
Yeah, because there's certain schools that are business. I mean, not business as in industrial. I mean, business. You gotta work. Like Harvard is not one where you can float through. MIT, you cannot float through. Dartmouth, you cannot coast through. Maybe UMass, you can coast through a little bit. Maybe, University of Texas, you can coast through a little bit. But, there's certain schools that when you apply to them, it is all business 100%. So you want to make sure you find a good fit, I guess.
I think
Plymouth State, party school.
You use the perfect word, Craig, the fit. Because when we work with students, many times these students and sometimes the parents have never set foot on a college campus besides the one that maybe the parents had graduated from. They don't necessarily know what these schools are about other than what they've heard in the media, what they might have heard on a local football game. The reality is with thousands of schools out there, there's no perfect fit. But if you were to go through the process of applying to 6 to 8 schools and working with University Advisors, the firm that I head up, we're going to give you a list of schools that we think are appropriate based on your academic and social criteria. A lot of students in New England, where I grew up, they're probably going to stay in this region.
Sure.
I went to Elmira College in upstate New York, but it was because I reached out to my dad, who is college educated, and we went on a college tour. And we went all over. We went to Pittsburgh. We went to upstate New York. We did some visits here in Massachusetts. Not every parent has that luxury of taking that time, and I would recommend any family to take the time before their senior year, the summer before their senior year, to go on a college tour and to see the different types of schools out there. Because for every small elite university, there are a dozen other schools out there that have great academic reputations that you may not have heard of, but might be an unbelievable fit for you based on the fact that you want a smaller school. You want to have the opportunity to go to a liberal arts school, or to be in an environment where they're going to really champion the fact that you want to be an engineer. You might not necessarily get that at a state school, and that's not to put down a state school.
No, they're much more broad.
They are much more broad. Many of the state schools and many of the public research universities are not actually focused on undergraduate education. They're focused on research and graduate studies. And that's not to blame them at all, because they have their place. But when we're talking about college, we're talking about 4 years, hopefully. Yeah. Unless you're
super smart.
That's right.
I'm on the 2-year program.
But there are just a lot of factors that go into making a good decision.
Now, how much? You said there's 1 to 500 for guidance counselors.
Yes.
And I had that. That was my major. As I look back, my major hang-up for not even applying to a lot of schools was because I had like 5 guidance counselors in like 3-year period, and of the 5, I think I only met 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm in the middle of the list. They're going down the list. I'm going to meet with a student every day, and then you don't get to the P's until after the beginning of the second semester, and by then I don't care. By then they were replaced. It was just a weird situation. So how critical is a guidance counselor to the process?
I'm glad you asked that question, because when families work with me and our firm, they will ask that question, and I believe guidance counselors are very important. For that letter of recommendation that usually is required to come from a guidance counselor, I want the student I'm working with to build that relationship with a guidance counselor. I want that guidance counselor to know my student by first name.
And not because they're in trouble all the time.
And not because they're in trouble.
That's how the principal knew me. So
well, and the reality, Craig, guidance counselors are stretched thin. Their job responsibility is not solely to help students look through the whole college admission process.
Yeah, there's things going on at the school they got to take care of.
There's usually 3 core areas: college search, social or behavioral problems, and identifying classes to take in high school. So they've got 3 areas. It's unfortunate that that ratio is so high because of budget cuts or just lack of priority for a lot of these public and private schools. I think the private schools, you're going to find that it's a much smaller ratio where there's a lot more hand-holding, which I think is good because when you're 16, 17, 18 years old and you have an idea of what college is going to look like,
You have no idea.
you have no idea.
You're watching Van Wilder on television. That's all you know. It's a lot of naked ladies and beer. And that's what they want. They want a great education and a lot of fun.
And they want opportunity. And I keep hearing that in today's news, Craig. What does a college degree produce? What am I getting? What is the value proposition? One of the key questions I think families should be asking when they're going on a college tour or when they're looking at colleges, what is that graduation rate at that particular school? Is it below 60% within 6 years? Is it above 80%? Because the really great schools, it's above 80%. And you start asking, well, why? Why is it above 80% or why is it below 60%? You can probably get some pretty good answers. The reality, too, families are looking at cost. Who wouldn't? Higher education continues to double the rate of inflation annually.
Well, and that's the big problem for a lot of graduates is that they start off in a huge financial hole.
They do.
I mean, they may have these great degrees for jobs that someday will pay good money. Like, say you're a doctor or mechanical engineer. I don't know if they're mechanical engineers, but I'm assuming they make pretty good cash there. A lawyer, but that's not going to happen the first couple of years. That's going to happen down the road. So it's tough to justify today. We're going to spend $15,000 this year, which is I'm assuming that's kind of middle of the road, $15,000. Maybe on the low end.
It would be middle of the road. The average private university now is probably somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000.
Yeah, we're going to a state school. We can't afford the private ones, but 15 low. I mean, state schools are in-state schools are great.
They are.
They're super cost effective for residents. But you've got the people who are they're making a certain amount of money in the future. They've got that degree, so it's hard to justify, sometimes the immediate, hey, we don't have the money today, but you need to invest it so you can 5 years from now you're doing okay.
I think great word you use, invest, because if you look at it just from a business point of view, getting the college degree, you are investing in your future. And yeah, you might have to be in debt $25,000 to $50,000 coming out of college. The reality, though, over the course of your life, without a college degree, you're going to make a significant amount less than if you were to earn that college degree. And I forget what the numbers are.
No, it's a fair substantial. I know exactly what you're referring to. It's a substantial number.
It is a substantial number. And when you earn the college degree and then when you earn a terminal degree such as
That sounds dangerous.
Well, a terminal degree would be something such as a Juris Doctorate for an attorney.
Okay.
Or an MD for a medical doctor. Or even a PhD for somebody in the humanities. Those are terminal degrees. You can't get anything higher than that. And I think less than 5% of the country have terminal degrees. And I think it's less than 10% have greater than a master's degree.
Yeah.
So really, you're talking at that point after college, and you have to go to college to get those degrees.
Yeah, they don't let you in. You can't jump the system. You can't buy in.
You cannot jump the system unless you earn an honorary doctorate, and that's not necessarily an earned thing. That's something that somebody is bestowing on you.
I tried to negotiate that with Cornell.
Oh, did you really?
They had me come speak, and I'm like, I will waive my fee if you give me an honorary degree, and it could be fine arts, just anything. It doesn't have to be. It's not like I want to be a doctor of medicine, but give me a DFA. That'd be nice.
Sure.
No, they didn't buy it. They didn't go for it. But so we got the senior. We've got the junior year. We're starting to work with you. We're working with our guidance counselor. We're schmoozing them so they know us, so we can get going. The senior summer, the year before our senior year, we're taking a college tour.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's the process. Now how we the actual application process can be kind of daunting at times.
It can, because there's a lot of deadlines to meet, and sometimes there are a lot of decisions about whether or not a student wants to apply regular decision, early action. It can be confusing for students. It really can be, because let's face it, wouldn't it be so easy if there was just one application you could fill out? and it would go to any school that you wanted to apply to, and they had one deadline.
Yeah, like trying to get a job at McDonald's. You know, it's one page. You don't even have to flip it. I'd love that.
It would be great, but I got to tell you this, Craig. It's not that way anymore.
Oh, it was. I don't think it was ever that way in college, but
there are some things that have made it easier. There's this common application. There's, if you're in California where I live, there's the UC system and the Cal State system, and they have a window of time where you can apply, and you can just check boxes to which Cal State campus or UC campus you want to submit your application to. That's great. They've made it very, very easy and seamless. It's still a process, though. You still have to make sure you answer short answers. You submit your SAT or ACT scores. With the UC schools, I don't think there's letters of recommendation, but with the Common App for some of the schools, there are recommendations because there's a more qualitative approach to evaluating students.
And so we start that process, and there's multiple deadlines. Where do most people get hung up on? Where's the key thing that most people have a problem with?
It's identifying the schools, which is where we have the experience because we have visited hundreds of schools, not just here in the United States, some in Canada, some over in Europe. And yes, we have sent students over to European institutions and to Canada for that matter. It's actually cheaper to send your child to Canada to go to school.
I feel bad when you say it's like, oh, we had to send him to Canada. So it was his special school in Canada. He's just too polite for regular college, so we sent him to Canada.
Canadian schools are just as rigorous, if not more so.
Oh, I have no doubt.
And the fact is, if you were a Canadian citizen, the tuition is very reasonable. And even if you're not a Canadian citizen, if you were to compare going to a Canadian school versus going to a private school, here in New England, for example, a lot cheaper to go to Canada.
Oh, I can only imagine that it's always been slightly more cost effective. They've got a little more streamlined. I mean, it's finding the school. So what are the key things that you're looking for in a school? Obviously, you're looking for their graduation rate. We've kind of hammered that one. You want somewhere around 80%, 60 to 80?
I think more than 60 because and 60 is pretty low. That's setting the bar pretty low. I think a lot of the...
You obviously didn't see my transcripts, so we'll start with 60 to 80 is what we're looking for.
60 to 80, and there are some schools that even have close to 90%. Now, those are the BCs and the Stanfords of the world. They do a great job of...
weeding out the
well,
folks.
I think retaining students and setting them up for success. There's a lot of retention challenges for students. In California, the retention challenges, I think, are cultural. There are a lot of Latino students, especially in Southern California, where they could be a first-generation student, and there are a lot of mechanisms in place at some of the schools there to make sure that they're doing their best to retain those types of students. For other students that are maybe good academically, they're going to have other challenges, social challenges, athletic challenges, just to name a few. And with all of the pressures of leaving home and going off to school, if you are going off to school, if you're not commuting, college is the first opportunity you have to really spread your wings. And sometimes you put your wings in the wrong places and you get in trouble.
You jump out of the nest and hit the ground.
That's right.
I've seen people have that happen to them, where as soon as they got to college, they went crazy.
Yes.
Because they weren't prepared for all that freedom, and they got burned out too quickly, too soon.
And it happens all the time, Craig. So what we do initially, when a student meets with us, and we want the student driving the process, not the parent. They can be involved initially, but after that, it's the student, because the student is the one that is going to be going off to college.
Yeah, they're going to be doing the heavy lifting.
They're going to be doing all of the work, besides maybe cutting a check to go to school.
Right.
But they are the ones that drive the process. And what we do is to make sure that we put a list together. So when they have their 6 or 8 schools, I keep going back to this list of 6 or 8 because I don't like to advise a student to have more than 8 schools because it gets too cumbersome. There's too many cooks in the kitchen.
And then you can't put all your hopes on 2 schools.
You cannot. I actually stress that every student that I work with, when we select those 6 to 8 schools, if they're not admitted to 5 out of those 6 schools and the one admittance that they earn, they're going to be happy. That's their number one school. It's like selecting 6 number one schools. No matter what, they're going to be happy in the end.
Because you've got it down. So not only is it just all the education, but the social structure, how the whole campus vibe. So how far along do you keep up with the students? Is it up until they leave to school? Do you do more to maintain?
I'm glad you asked the question, Craig, because many families wonder the same thing. We work all the way until the deposit deadline. May 1 is traditionally the deposit deadline across the United States. That's when a student will let their schools know. Now, for example, you have 6 schools. Let's say 3 of them you're admitted to, 2 you're waitlisted, and 1 you're denied. You're going to let the waitlisted schools know, hey, you know what? Thank you for putting me on your list, but I'm not going to enroll there. I am going to enroll with institution A. And you're going to let all the other schools know that that's what you're going to do. And you put your deposit down for that particular school, and then that's when we stop working together because you've made your decision. You're going to go off to institution A, and we're going to say, excellent. Because you know what? Institution A was a number one school for you.
And
no matter what.
Yeah, because you of the 6, like I said, you hone it down so that, yes, their choices are limited, but it's not that they have limited choices.
That's right.
It's what they wanted, but it's just, it's like going to get chocolate.
That's right.
You're going to pick out the ones with got the peanuts and the one without the peanuts, but hey, it's still chocolate, man.
Great analogy, Craig.
You still got the candy.
You still got the candy, and it's getting the student in the mindset throughout that entire process leading up to that May 1st deadline. You know what? I'm not going to get admitted to every place, but I'm going to get admitted to one place at least, because the schools I put on help to devise with that student, these are schools that are going to be within their range based on their grades, their SAT score, extracurricular involvement. I'm never going to set up a student for failure. The only times that I think failure is set up for students is when the media perpetuates, or parents can sometimes perpetuate, this feeling that if they don't get accepted to institution B, then their whole life is going to fall apart. And it happened with my sister. This is one of the first lessons I learned about college admissions, Craig. My sister was 3 years older than me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she was 2 to 3 years old, and she was accepted to Harvard, and it crushed her.
Well, she was accepted to Brown and wound up enrolling at Brown, but her number one choice was Yale. And when she wasn't accepted to Yale, it was like the sky was falling down. I'll never forget that day. I was
she got accepted to Brown. Oh, horrible, horrible, boo-hoo. I have no sympathy for people who are very smart and go to another smart school, but I can certainly understand, especially with Harvard, Yale, and MIT are the 3 schools that people are desperately trying to get into and are crushed.
And I think there are a lot of schools out there besides the 3 that you've mentioned where people get their mindset, I have to get into this school, I have to get into this school. And if they aren't admitted to that school, it's almost as if they've not just let themselves down, they've let their parents down, their friends down.
Generations of families that have worked hard and struggled, because I'm sure they bring it up. Your grandfather didn't come here to this country so you could not go to college. And then, so.
It can be disappointing. And that's why I think working with a firm like us, we're pretty knowledgeable about all of the options out there. And we stay in close proximity to what's going on in the industry of college admissions, because I've worked in college admissions before for UCSD and for Drury University.
Banana slugs?
That's
Santa
UC
Barbara.
Santa Cruz.
UC
San Diego are the Tritons.
Oh, I get all the mascots thinking.
Yes, the UC schools are always in the news out in California because of budget cuts or because of Title IX or whatever issue might be. But we more or less are helping students throughout the entire process to make sure that they're going to have their questions answered.
So if you're a parent and you've got a junior, or even it's still October, so an early senior, where can people find you in your company?
They can go online, universityadvisors.net. The name of our firm is University Advisors, and we've been helping students for over 15 years now.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time. I feel smarter just talking to you. I'm not going to college, but if I ever have kids, or maybe my dogs get smarter, I'll look for you to find the perfect place to put them.
Well, Craig, thank you very much for having me today, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about college admissions and everything that goes into place for making sure that students can have that smooth transition from high school to college.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize I was back then still not smart enough to figure all this stuff out, so I could have used someone like you. Thanks a lot, Liam.
Thank you, Craig.
I want to thank Liam for coming on the show. I certainly appreciate it. And if you have any guest suggestions, emails, or comments, you can always send them to Craig@SpeakerCraigPrice.com. If you like us on Facebook, every Tuesday the podcast will show up in your feed and you can listen to it directly from Facebook. You don't have to go anywhere. Also, you can find us on RealityCheckPodcast.com or subscribe on iTunes. Leave a review. We'd love some comments. See you next week.